Some of you have been here a while now and might know that I'm a pretty lazy man. But how on earth can you have a healthy diet that's also easy and convenient? Well, if you live in the US, it is your lucky day because I've got the perfect solution for you. Factor offers you the chance to get fresh, ready-made meals delivered directly to your doorstep. They're never frozen, they're full of high quality ingredients and packed with nutritional value too. It even offers meals for those following different lifestyles and diets. So what are you waiting for? Go and click that lovely link at the top of the description now. You'll get plenty of money off your first order with Factor and some off the few after too. You'd be a fool to miss out on an opportunity like that. Well, just 3 full match days to go in the Championship this season, and the surprise results are starting to stack up. We've got big battles for the playoff places and for that last relegation spot. And to be fair, there might be a few other battles that surprise us yet. We are back for match day 44 today with 11 games in the Championship this weekend. Of course, there is one missing due to Sheffield United flying the flag for the Championship in the FA Cup semi-final. That might be a bit of a tricky game against one of the best sides in European football. But for us, before we go and move on to our predictions, let's have a quick recap of what happened in midweek, because there were a lot of surprise results, proven by the fact that only one of us got more than 4 points in the predictions. That man is Gordon, who picked up 10. Well done to you. And you took advantage of the safe bet and you used the Championship's favourite scoreline of 1-1. Both of your perfect scores were for that, including my team Luton away at Reading. For W&G fan, you got 4 in addition to me. Your perfect score for Sheffield United, Bristol City. I got 1 point for that game. My other 3 came from a late saviour as Middlesbrough beat Hull City 3-1. So 4 points for me, 4 points for W&G fan. But Gordon romps to victory with 10 points this midweek. So what I'm going to do this weekend, inevitably, is put in about 100 Championship's favourite scorelines. And there probably won't be any, just to go and get me back. But let's go and move on to match day 44. Bit of a weird weekend because it's spread all over the place. We've got Saturday, Sunday and Monday. The final game is the one I'm going to be at. And then there's essentially a catch-up game every day next week as the other fixtures get played. But for now, let's start with Saturday afternoon. No early kickoffs. We start with a big game near the bottom. It is Birmingham City versus Blackpool. I say near because Birmingham with another big win up to 15th place on 53 points. Massive credit to John Eustace again. I've said it before, it's not been thrilling to watch this season. I've seen a few of their away games, including the first day of the season at Kenilworth Road, and they're there to frustrate teams. But given what he's got to work with, given where Birmingham have been the last few years, to not have that worry towards the end of the season, he's done really well, of course. And you've got to bear in mind, he's one of the few managers to make it through the season. So well done to him. For Blackpool, though, this game is huge. It's do or die, isn't it? They are 6 points behind QPR with 3 games to play. If they lose this, they are reliant on goal difference and no other points. Every result going their way to keep them up. And to be fair, if they hadn't won 6-1 against QPR, they'd probably be all but down already. But for Blackpool, it is a huge game. It is all about the onus on them. Away from home, the second worst team in the league this season. A disappointing defeat at home to West Brom after that crucial one against Wigan. It didn't offer a great deal going forward. I thought they'd offer more than they did. They did have a couple of chances, but West Brom had most of the better ones in that game. So don't be fooled by the stats looking even. Blackpool didn't do enough in that one. For Birmingham, a brilliant win away at Millwall. You've got to give them credit. They were industrious, they were hard-working. Yes, Millwall had loads of the ball. Yes, they had loads of chances. And yes, on the balance of play, you could argue Millwall had a couple of good ones. But ultimately, the result is what matters, and Birmingham have done really well. Only lost 1 of their last 6. They've kept 4 clean sheets in that time as well. Blackpool haven't scored more than 1 in any of their last 6 games. That includes the win at home to Wigan. So we've got a team that are rock solid at the back against a team that are pretty poor going forward. You have to predict a Birmingham win. They're a bit better at home overall this season. Blackburn are useless on the road. I'm going to have to go for Birmingham to do it. And I think it might be a bit heavier. I'm going to go by 2-0. Let's move on to Ashton Gate. It is Bristol City versus Rotherham United. Bristol City with nothing to play for. Rotherham probably need one more result. Got a very good draw at home to Burnley. Of course, the champions in waiting, we all assume. And given the situation they were in, conceding with 10 minutes to go, to get back from behind twice, to get that late point, it could well be a crucial one yet. Keeps them 3 points clear, keeps them 3 places clear, and just keeps that bit of distance to the relegation zone. they dug in, they did what they had to do. It wasn't a brilliant display, but we've seen Rotherham frustrate a lot of the top teams this year, so credit to them. For Bristol City, a very different type of display. Back-to-back performances without a goal, this time away at Sheffield United. And although they did their best to frustrate them, they've just not really got any cutting edge or attacking quality at the minute. They really missed Semenyo from January, and their form's just dried up since they've had nothing to play for. It is a little bit weird to see the defensive frailties creep back in, but overall, it's been an okay season for them again. And Nigel Pearson, another one of those who has made it through the season. So I don't really know what to go for this one. Rotherham have won less away games than anyone else this season, just 2 on the road. But they pick up a lot of draws. And Bristol City at home, they don't mind a draw either. So I think I'm going to go for the safe bet here. I want to go a bit higher scoring, but I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline. I didn't do it enough in midweek. I'm going to go for 1-1, and that point will be crucial for Rotherham. Next up, the side that Rotherham played in midweek, it is Burnley hosting QPR. You would probably call this a home banker if it wasn't for QPR digging in a little bit against Norwich in midweek. Burnley with back-to-back draws as well, just 1 victory away from the title, and of course, with Sheffield United not playing this weekend, there is nothing they can do to stop them. So, Burnley win, it is done, they can celebrate the title. But back-to-back draws against teams in the bottom half will be a concern for them, and especially after being so good defensively, to let in 2 against Rotherham, including that equaliser, a little bit frustrating. For QPR, much better. Got themselves ahead early against Norwich, and you feel for them that scoring the first goal is important. And although Norwich basically bombarded them second half, had loads of chances, loads of the ball, QPR had the best chance of the match. They fought, they dug in, and it didn't just collapse as we've seen in so many other games. Now, they are 1 place above the relegation zone. They are in big trouble still. And this game might be a tricky one because if one of those sides below get a result and QPR lose as many expect at Burnley, it could be a very long couple of weeks because that confidence of actually falling into the relegation zone is a problem. And this is a side that were top, 25 games ago. You've got to bear that in mind. So I'm going to have to go for a Burnley win to wrap up the Championship title in style. And I'm not going to go for anything outlandish because Burnley haven't been free scoring recently. 3 blanks in the last 6 games, including that cup quarter final. But I'm going to go for a 2-0 Burnley win. I think they'll lift the title on Saturday. Next up is a game which is huge for the home side. It is Cardiff City versus Stoke City. Cardiff with a brilliant 3-1 win at Watford. The less said about them, the better. But came from behind, showed brilliant fight back spirit, and in the end dug in to get their victory. I mean, on another day, Watford could have scored 6 or 7. Honestly, they had so many great chances. I think the Opta stats put it at 5-1, and somehow they lost it 3-1. But Cardiff, good away display. Didn't have a lot of the ball. Were ruthless with their attacks. They showed quality in front of goal, which we've not always said for them this season. Took advantage of set pieces. And Watford were toothless at the other end. So 3 big points for Cardiff keeps them 2 clear of the relegation zone. But they're still in that mix. Now Stoke, I don't really want to talk about because they're doing my head in. After they were deemed to have nothing to play for, they went on the best run you'll ever see. As soon as someone started mentioning they might make the playoffs, then they've fallen away again. 3 defeats in 4. They've played 3 teams in the bottom half and picked up 1 point in that run. I mean, what do you do with Stoke City? Alex Neil is going to need one hell of a turnover next year because they've got to get some characters in that team. They've got to get some consistency. It's a constant theme with the likes of Stoke and Bristol City. There is just no consistency in the squad. So for this game, because it means more to Cardiff, I'm sure Stoke could turn up and win 3 or 4 now. But I am going to go for the traditional Cardiff home score. They have been better on the road recently, but they're going to nick the 1-0 that gets them safe. Next up, a massive game at both ends of the table and 2 sides that in the end were probably very happy with a point in midweek. It is Coventry City versus Reading. Coventry, if you haven't seen the story, goalkeeper scored in the 95th minute, bundled it in from a yard. The Blackburn social media pages went on a big rant about handball. Not sure it was, it's pretty inconclusive. Certainly can't say it with any certainty. But a really interesting game in that battle for the playoffs and of course keeps Coventry just 1 point behind Blackburn. Wasn't a great game to watch for the neutral, not many shots on goal. It was played in the middle third for a large part, but overall a very good point on the road for them. And this is the sort of game they've got to look at winning. They have stumbled a few times recently, but Reading, loving a 1-1 draw at the moment, has 4 in 6 as they drew at home to Luton Town. Keeps them in the mix, just 1 point away from safety. Andy Carroll had an eventful night with his goal. Then his second goal, which was a deliberate handball for a second yellow card, claimed as accidental. I think the replays probably speak for themselves, but he will be a crucial miss for them this weekend. So in the end, very disappointing to throw away that lead, but with 10 men against a side in the playoffs, a point's not a bad result, is it? It's very tempting to go for 1-1 here because Reading love that scoreline more than anyone else in the Championship. But I don't think I'm going to go for it because Coventry at home, when they get flying, they're brilliant. Reading really struggle with mobility and Coventry have got that in abundance. So I'm going to go for a big win. I'm going to go for a comfortable one. Without the threat from Andy Carroll, I don't think Reading score either. 3-0 to the hosts. Well, on to what is now remarkably a bit of a mid-table clash. It is Hull City versus Watford. Both sides lost 3-1 in midweek. Hull, no shame away at Middlesbrough. There are sides that have lost by more than that. And they just didn't have the same level of firepower. They tried to set up to frustrate, and in the end, Middlesbrough probably could have had more. But it's not the sort of game where Hull are going to be able to get results at the minute. When Borough are firing, there are very few teams in the league that can stop them. For Watford, on the other hand, I mentioned how many goals they should have scored against Cardiff. But defensively again, and the way they collapsed to let in 3 goals in 10 minutes, it's just those crazy spells. Chris Wilder's interview after was incredibly revealing, and I've not really seen a manager talk about their team that openly in that vein for a long time, but given the chances they had, it probably should have been the reverse result. But you cannot keep making those mistakes and having those lacks of discipline in defence in the Championship. You'll get found out by any side, and Watford were, and now 5 points off the playoffs, but most importantly, still 6 teams between them. It's going to be very hard to see all of those slip up. And if Watford go up at the moment, it'd probably be a bloodbath next year. I think they need a big rebuild in the summer. For this game, I have no idea what to go for. We've seen with Watford, they can be very good. But one of the things they're not going to be is probably good in defence. So as much as I was tempted by a 0-0 scoreline, I'm going to go for another Championship's favourite scoreline. Hull, bar that Sunderland game, not the best in front of goal. So 1-1 seems a pretty logical prediction here. Let's move on to another of those sides relegated last year who have just found poor form at the wrong time. It is Norwich City versus Swansea City. Swansea, let's start with them quickly. A brilliant 4-2 win against Preston. Went 3-0 up, somehow nearly threw it away with more abject defending, but the less said about that, the better. We don't want to be a broken record. Let's focus on the positives. They were really good going forward, showed a lot of spirit. Russell Martin probably got to stop getting involved in touchline skirmishes. You wouldn't say he started that one at all, but he's becoming a common denominator, so just needs to be careful there. But probably sums up his frustration with the season and with what the situation in January on deadline day with Carling Grant, etc. And Joe Allen is probably going to be a big miss now as well. So lots of problems for Swansea in spite of victory. And we know that they don't often put together great runs, but at the moment, you've got to be fair to them. They're doing exactly that. They've won 5 of their last 6 matches. They've kept 4 clean sheets in that run as well. And although most of the other games were against bottom half sides, they did it against a playoff contender in Preston. They're only 5 points away themselves, but it is probably too little too late. For Norwich, a 1-1 draw at QPR. Lots of chances, lots of shots, very little ruthless edge. But after a 5-1 defeat against Borough, it was an important result. But when you're chasing the playoffs and they're still only 2 points behind, the games you can't afford to drop points in are the ones against struggling bottom half teams, which with Rotherham, with QPR, and to be fair, even with Stoke a few weeks ago as well, that has been the case. So probably just leaving themselves too much to do, but they have shown better signs under Wagner. For this game, I don't really know. I feel there's a poor Swansea performance coming, but I don't know if Norwich have got enough to take advantage. I'm going to go for them to deliver. I've got no real prediction for this one. It's a very difficult game, so I'm going to go on a bit of a hunch. When I normally do that, it goes very wrong. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Norwich. Well, we talked about teams with a do-or-die fixture, and this one is certainly that for both. It is Wigan Athletic against Millwall. For Wigan, a 1-0 away win at Stoke, which just kept them in the survival race. They are now 7 points behind with 3 to play. But because of the points deduction, their goal difference isn't that much worse, albeit the Colo Torre spell did have an effect. A brilliant result for them, a very gritty, hard-working performance, but you've got to suggest it's probably too late now, haven't you? Stoke were awful in that game, by the way. For Millwall, what a disappointment. Another side finding poor form at the wrong time. Haven't scored in 5 of their last 6 games, and that included a midweek defeat to Birmingham, a game in which, again, they had 21 shots, 7 on target, 2 registered clear-cut chances as well. I just don't know. It's dried up at the wrong time. They've got so much quality. They've had so many chances in a number of their games. And remarkably, due to the championships this season, they're still in the playoff places. They're on 65 points, they're 2 clear, but there are loads of teams stacking up. I mean, the fact that 5th and 11th are separated by 3 points with 3 to go, it is remarkable, isn't it? But I do worry for Millwall at the moment. It just seems to be going wrong at the wrong time. They've not had their big wobble yet this season, albeit they started a bit slowly. They have to find goals in this one. And for Wigan, they're often involved in low-scoring games. It's been 1-0 either way for the most part in the last 5. And there's so much pressure on them to win it. Do I go for another Championship's favourite scoreline? Or do I go for Millwall to nick one? I don't like to say it, but I think this will be the day that Wigan go down. I'm going to go for a 1-0 Millwall away win. Even if I went for the Championship's favourite scoreline, it's not enough for the host at this point. But I'm going to go for 1-0 to Millwall. I think they will just nick a victory. The final game on Saturday is the Lancashire Derby, the late kick-off at 5:30. It is Preston North End versus Blackburn Rovers. And my word, these two sides need a victory. Preston back-to-back defeats, conceding 6 with a 4-2 defeat against Swansea in midweek. A big skirmish on the touchline, which was absolutely crazy with nearly everyone involved. But they're playing a Blackburn side that have not won in 6. That last-minute defeat in the FA Cup quarter-final really seems to have scarred them. Since then, apart from that fight-back draw against Huddersfield, it has been a very difficult spell. Didn't score in 3 of their 4 games prior to midweek, and against Coventry, well, when you have those sorts of games, you could see what had happened. They were 1-0 up. They weren't quite in confident mood. They slowed it down second half. They were sitting a bit deeper. They were trying to take their time and just trying to see out a 1-0 win. And it came back to bite them in the end. The Coventry goalkeeper scoring in the 95th minute. And it just keeps Blackburn on the brink. They have got some massive games to come. This one is huge because if they win it, it puts them comfortably in the playoffs again and knocks Preston essentially out of the running. I'm not sure it's going to play out that way. Remarkably for Preston fighting for the playoffs, they've got a poor home record in the league, only 27 points from 21 games. Blackburn away from home are pretty abject as well. They've only picked up 22 points, virtually won a game. What do we go for here? I'm sitting on the fence again, aren't I? There's a lot of games at the end of the season. I've just got to go for it. The Championship's favourite scoreline. It never lies. 1-1 for Preston and Blackburn. 2 to go and the penultimate game is on Sunday. It is a big one in the race for the playoffs. It's West Brom versus Sunderland. West Brom with a comfortable win away at Blackpool. Back-to-back victories at a crucial time and finally starting to take some chances. It was probably a less exciting display and a less forward-thinking display than a lot of their recent ones where they hadn't won, but they took their chances. They were more ruthless. The big blow is Daryl DK out for the long term again. But to be fair to them, they got the victory. And at this stage, that's all that matters. 1 point off the playoffs with 2 teams wildly out of form above them. Maybe this is the weekend they get in that top 6. For Sunderland, frustration at home to Huddersfield. A 1-1 draw after back-to-back wins. And again, although Joe Gelhardt did get his goal, they're just not hitting the target enough. There's not the same team without those big focal points up front, and I can't keep saying the same thing every week. So I'll leave it at that. It's a massive game in the race for the playoffs. 9th v 7th. I mean, there's 1 point separating them. It's a ridiculous battle up there. Oh, I'm tempted to go 1-1 again, you know, but Sunderland away from home, they're so good. 5th best record in the league versus the 6th best home record. Oh, West Brom don't concede many at home either. I feel like this is going to be 1-0 either way, and I don't really know which way to go for. You know what? I'm going to go for the experience to count. I'd normally back Sunderland on the road. I'm going to go for 1-0 to West Brom. And again, just got a little inkling rather than any big stats behind it. So many of these games this weekend, you could just predict either way, but I'm going for 1-0 to the Baggies. Monday Night Football is the final game of the weekend, and it's a game I'll be attending. Luton Town in 3rd versus Middlesbrough in 4th. Probably will decide which way round these two teams finish. Luton got a late equaliser at Reading. It was a frustrating display, but after Andy Carroll got himself sent off, Carlton Morris did what he so often does. And we've got to bear in mind as well, from a neutral point of view, for Luton's budget, for the size of squad they have, for the stature of club, it's a remarkable achievement to reach the Championship playoffs twice in a row. And after last year, a final day victory against Reading sneaking them in, this year they're at the top of that playoff tree. It does probably dispel their chances a second now though. I think we've got to admit that's over. But it is 11 games unbeaten. It's a remarkable effort in a Championship. And Luton Town again defying the odds. For Middlesbrough, well, that little blip didn't last long, did it? Back in form with back-to-back wins, 8 goals scored in the process. And Chuba Akpom has scored in 9 consecutive home Championship games. That is some effort from the lad. Added to Cameron Archer coming in January, a few other players stepping up to the plate now. Middlesbrough are starting to look brilliant. I mean, I'm looking back at the first game when Luton came back into the Championship. That was in August of 2019, and it was a 3-3 draw, an absolute thriller, and it was a great game to watch. It has got the hallmarks of being that again. Luton have started to find a bit more of a ruthless edge from their chances. Borough have been scoring and conceding with plenty this time around. But I just feel Luton's unbeaten run's going to come to an end. I wonder now, with second almost out of reach, will they start resting people for the playoffs? Realistically, they're not going to drop any further than fourth. So maybe this is a game where we see a few of those Luton players just get a rest. Middlesbrough have got a bigger squad. They've got a lot of quality in there as well. And although they've not been as good away from home this season, they don't often draw. So I've got to go for a win or a defeat. And I'm going to go for a Borough win. I think it will be a thriller. I think it'll be a great game to watch. I'm going to go for Middlesbrough to nick it by 3-2. Game of the weekend for sure. Well, let's have a quick recap of my predictions for matchday 44. And I think there's no doubt in saying my thriller is at the end. I've also gone for Coventry to get 3 at home to Reading. And to be fair, in that relegation mix, I've not got many winners this weekend. It looks like my big gainers are going to be Cardiff City, who I've predicted to get a win at home to Stoke, and Rotherham to edge another point closer as well. But potentially this weekend, if I get my predictions right, Burnley will be champions, Blackpool will be virtually down, and Wigan will be definitely down. But let me know if you agree or disagree. They're just my rubbish predictions. I'm sure you guys can do better. Let me know yours down in the comments for the weekend. If you beat my score as always, you will get a shout out in the next recap. We've got a big midweek to come with 3 other rearranged fixtures. We'll be back on Sunday to look ahead to them. But thank you very much for watching as always. If you enjoyed it, please do add a thumbs up, subscribe for regular content from the podcast. And of course, if you're in the US, check out the new sponsor in the description below. Not long to go in the championship season now. There's going to be a few twists and turns in the relegation and playoff battle. Let me know how you think they'll go, and I'll see you on Sunday for a few more predictions.